Before we get started, I would like to talk about something very serious: birds. They look small, cute, innocent enough, but often they lead to a condition known as ecological awareness. And birds can be that gateway drug. Let's take a look at our first case, Larry. All names have been changed to protect those involved. Larry used to be a well respected member of his HOA. Perfectly manicured lawn, not a weed in sight, every plant exactly where it should be. He was the envy of the neighborhood. One day, while at the hardware store, though, he walked by the bird feeding section, thinking a tube feeder might be a good addition to his lawn. After all, what harm could one feeder do? Soon, these little black and white birds started showing up in his yard. Larry had no clue what these birds were. Noticing his brand new feeder, though, the neighbor down the road lent him one of her old field guides. He soon learned that these cute little black and white birds were called black-capped chickadees, and this book was filled with hundreds more birds. Soon he started adding more feeders: a suet feeder, a hummingbird feeder, and a platform feeder. And more birds started showing up at his feeder, including these little yellow ones that he learned were American goldfinches, which soon became one of his favorites. He then learned that these goldfinches liked native plants like echinacea or coneflowers, so he decided to plant a few in his yard as well. And then he learns bee balm can attract hummingbirds, so he added some of those as well. Soon he kept on adding more native plants in the hopes of getting more birds. And soon his yard started looking a little bit unkempt, and he started getting weird looks from his neighbors as his yard became a little bit less tidy and a little bit more wild looking. He also developed a unsettling habit of looking out his front window with binoculars. Children were warned from walking by his house. This new change in his yard made him a little bit of a talking point with his neighbors. Some were not too pleased. But soon a great obsession took hold of Larry, and he had to find more of these birds, some of the hundreds that he saw in his book. One particular bird that he saw that he really wanted to see was the great blue heron. He learned that he needed to go to marshes or wetlands to find them. He then at that point also learned about an app called eBird, and that gave him the exact location where he can get his next bird fix. And that would be a little wetland just a half a mile down the road from him. While out looking for birds, he learned that you'd have to go to certain habitats to find certain birds. And certain birds can only be found in certain parts of the country. This effectively crushed his dream of finding a burrowing owl in his central New York neighborhood. But the obsession kept spiraling, and soon he found himself in some really weird locations looking for birds, like a gull at his local landfill. But soon, as he learned more about birds, he learned about all the threats that were facing his local birds in his own yard alone. He soon stopped using pesticides and weed killers in his yard. He put reflective decals to protect the birds from hitting his window. And he started turning off his lights at night to help migrating songbirds. And that is just the start of his diagnosis with ecological awareness. But in the end, is that really a bad thing? Quite the contrary. Birds may be the gateway drug to create our next big environmental activists or environmentalists. Because getting more people involved in learning and caring about birds affects all living things, their habitat, and the wildlife that relies on that habitat. Birds may be the first thing people notice about the world around them, but that's usually not the last thing. Once you start learning and caring about birds, that environmental curiosity usually takes hold, and you start becoming aware of how interconnected the environment is. Once you start learning about birds, that environmental curiosity usually takes hold. And from there, you start learning about other things: habitat types, plants, insects, and how connected everything is to each other. How plants serve as pollinators, seed dispersals, and the key roles they play in ecosystems. Birds have always fascinated us, captured our attention with their colors, behavior, and diversity. You have a vast number of bird species in the world. over 11,000 at last count. They have colonized and filled in every niche, every habitat, made use of every diet, and that has led to a great diversity of species with all sorts of colors, behaviors, and that is one of the things that has really caught our attention as a whole. So, say you go for a walk. How many different mammals will you see on that walk? Probably two to three at most. Insects, there are probably a lot more there than birds, but they are smaller and typically less noticeable, so they may not be noticeable by most people. And depending on the season, they may not even be present. Reptiles and amphibians may be present, but typically are not out in the open and as easily noticeable. Fish only present in certain habitats, and even if they are present, they may be hard to see. Birds, on the other hand, are present year round and in almost all habitats and areas. You'll be hard pressed to go anywhere without seeing a few different ones. And that is why 1 in 3 Americans watch birds, whether that be just watching birds at their own backyard, traveling, or just casual bird watchers. And that is a reason why bird watching has grown too, is they are present everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a city, a field, a forest, or a lake, birds will be present. Birds can teach us so much about the environment. They can teach us about habitats. Because as you begin birding, you'll learn certain birds can only be found in certain kind of habitats. If you go into the middle of a dry field, chances are you won't find a wood duck, but you would have better chances of finding a meadowlark. So if there is a particular species you want to see, you need to know where that bird is typically found. Birds also teach us about plants. If you're looking for certain birds, you need to know what their preferred food source is. For instance, if you're looking for a redpoll or another one of these eruptive finch species, you need to know what the preferred diet is and look for that. So, if you are looking for a redpoll, you may be on the lookout for patches of birch or alder trees. Or maybe if you're looking for Connecticut warbler, you're looking for patches of jewelweed, which was one of their favorite sources of food. You may even start learning about weather patterns, so you know when is a good time to go out and bird. Or if you're doing lake watches or hawk watches, you know to predict when is a good day to go hawk watching or lake watching, depending on which direction the wind's coming from. You'll also start becoming more aware of seasonal changes. And you'll learn that not all birds look the same year round, that depending on if it's spring or fall, the same bird could look vastly different. In this case, we have images of the chestnut-sided warbler. On the left is bright breeding plumage, and on the right, the basic plumage that you'll see in fall. You may also start learning about molt and migration patterns. You may even become a connoisseur of certain farming practices. You may learn that certain farms put out different kinds of manure that seem to attract snow buntings and Lapland longspurs more than other manure. By getting into birding, you become so much more attuned to the natural world around you, its changes, and how connected everything is. And because of these reasons, birds can be the perfect tool to introduce people to the natural world and inspire that natural curiosity that gets them to learn about more than just the birds around them. You never know where that person's path may lead. Maybe they just watch birds from their backyard. Or the next person you teach about birds could be the next Sibley or Peterson. You never know when you teach people about birds, where they will end up. And as we care more about birds and learn more about them, this awareness inspires the desire to protect and conserve these species. And in times like this, we need as many people possible caring and wanting to protect these birds, as so many are facing threats. And birds can be that gateway for that desire to protect and conserve life around us. For in the end, we will only conserve what we love, and we will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. That is a good quote to end with, and that sums up exactly why it is so important to teach as many people about birds and get them to care and love and want to conserve them, because that is the only way that people will care, is if they know and learn about these animals. Thank you so much for listening, all you lovely bird nerds. And if you liked this episode, please feel free to like and subscribe to this channel. Till next time, happy birding.